Laura, very welcome here at I.D.E.A.L Society. We're so pleased that you could come and share your experience about the prenatal world and all the prenatal experiences that you've been having for so many years. Could you tell us a few words about this journey and maybe some elements about what you're doing right now?
Hello, it's an honor and a privilege to be here. Yes, this journey of mine in the prenatal universe has started some 35 years ago with the importance of the inner life of every pregnant woman, the importance of her imagination, how she sees the universe, how she sees herself. Who is she while she's pregnant? What is she transmitting to this baby besides the food she's eating, the beauty she's surrounded by? What are her deep core beliefs in life? Because that is translated at every second in the biochemistry of her blood, and that will contribute to her harmonious or less harmonious growth and development of her baby. It's been fascinating because some 35 years ago it pertained to the world of philosophy, even of mysticism. It was taught in many traditions, from the Himalayas to the Andes. But now, since the very end of the 20th century, it has become center stage in the field of science and social science, because of our social intelligence, the way our brain is built, also neurophysiology, and above all, cell biology. We witnessed the end of genetic determinism. Yes, we do have a genetic inheritance. Yes, it's important. Our DNA has power, but it is not an absolute power. A gene does not have the power to set itself in motion, in action. No gene can say, hi, I'm the gene of Parkinson. Now my host will have Parkinson. It's not like that. The membrane of the cell is the actual brain of the cell, and it's according to how it senses the world that surrounds the cell that it will send a message to the nucleus. And then, yes, that or that aspect of the DNA will become manifest. This is huge. It gives us huge freedom, especially if we were already born. But when a woman is pregnant, it's the making of all those interplays between cells and the environment. Remember nature against nurture? Now science has found out that they go hand in hand. Yes, there is what we inherit, and yes, the way we nurture our heritage really matters also.
Thank you, Laura, for this inspiration to know more about this prenatal reality. And since maybe 10 or 20 years, as you mentioned, the scientific world really integrated and explored much more this connection between the mother and the child in her womb during pregnancy. Could you tell us some elements of discovery that you see really essential for the prenatal life and the pregnancy of a mother, of a couple?
Well, for instance, at the very time of conception, if the mother is well, if she is in love, if she is willing to become pregnant, if she says yes to life, if she has been on a path of nurturance towards herself, if that couple is a harmonious couple, already the membrane of her egg will have more receptors to growth factors in the womb during pregnancy in case she conceives. It is exactly what we want. In the womb we want growth, we want harmonious growth, we want lots of receptors to the factors for growth. So, in a way, already at conception we could say if that little one will have more chances for a good development or a lesser development, like a premature birth or lack of growth in the womb. We don't want any lack of growth. See, this is how our physical body and our mind are constantly working together. Stress, resounding stress, chronic stress will flood the cells of this new baby, growing body with cortisol. And fortunately, cortisol, of the family of adrenaline, prevents growth. So we have another cause of possible growth retardation. When stress occurs here and there, it's fantastic, including the way we resolve stress. We are already teaching. See, prenatal education is the mother as an educator to her child. How she lives, how she embraces life, how she says, oh babe, this was a hell of a day. Gosh, everything that happened at the office today was so hard. But here we are, the two of us, and let's get over. This is one day that was tough. Tomorrow will be better. So this constant dialogue that a mother could have consciously with her baby, even to explain to the baby why some days are not that great. This is already learning. This is excellent. We don't want a life without any kind of stress, but we want the mother being able to overcome some inner difficult situations, because already that biochemistry of overcoming something that was a frustration is already teaching cellularly, molecularly, to the baby how life is outside of the womb, that there is hope. Yes, situations will happen, difficult situations, and we can overcome them. Or when we have joy, how we can be even more conscious of it and linger in it a little longer when possible.
It seems that this state of inspiration and joy is really paramount for the pregnant mothers to really support the growth of their baby in their womb.
Yes.
Could you talk more about that state of mind and how precious it is?
You see, now we know a lot about the human body. We don't know enough yet, but we know a lot. And one of the things that we know, every physical human body is designed to work under the regimen of joy. You can be 94 years old, you can be 5 years old. For every system, for every organ to thrive, for your immune system to be resilient and your brain to be robust, you need to be working on a regimen of joy. Now, if a woman is pregnant, or when a woman is pregnant, that joy is part of the biochemistry that will allow for the forces of life to work throughout the organs of the baby. And then I ask you, what could we offer pregnant women? What kind of beauty, of inspiration, what kind of food also? Physical food is also paramount. I would say the three of them: joy, beauty, inspiration, and food, physical food. Once women have that during pregnancy, you'll have a totally different humanity.
Since you're talking about humanity as a whole, and you mentioned in the beginning that this topic, this subject, has been present in many traditions in the world since a long time. What really changed over the years, and how our society found a way to gradually incorporate those ideas, or how they didn't find a way? Could you talk a little bit more about the ability of our society, our modern society, to incorporate those ideas of prenatal development and education?
It is important for us to look at history, to look at the story of each civilization, how the wars and the heroes worked. How did we grow as human beings? Not so much. I know that technology has been gorgeous lately. 20th century saw the birth of such extraordinary technologies. But if you have a quick look at the leading societies, the very rich people, our leaders throughout history, we see how poor their social behavior was. We see how insecure they were, always having to state their power through conquering and enslaving other peoples. This shows how the self-esteem of these leaders was kind of tiny. What is the birth of self-esteem? When is it born? How can we foster it? Probably it starts before conception, by being wanted, by feeling secure about expecting a new child, not being threatened by so many social duties as to bear a boy for that family of that king, of that kingdom, and perhaps being able to enjoy pregnancy and perhaps breastfeeding. We don't have in our history, especially the history of our leaders, much of a breastfeeding. It was done by wet nurses. The mommy-baby relationship, the bonding, the trust through life, this image of a woman being happy, working with nature and bringing to life a child, feeling so secure that not only she is the mother, but that she can live that love that this child will have towards her. She won't have to give it away to another maid, let's say. So now is the time that we have understood what happens with breast milk, how every baby has exactly the milk that he needs from his or her mom. It's just beautiful. We haven't applied yet. The discoveries are here. We know a lot, but we haven't applied. Only couples here and there, the lucky ones, the privileged ones, but we're talking about an elite of minds. It's not a social, economical elite anymore. And the new currents of science are justifying the well-being of a couple, of a pregnant woman. Birth is also very important, and breastfeeding. We have now these elements. They seem so old, but they were never applied collectively towards the birth of a new civilization.
Laura, through all the different really researchers and experts that you had the chance to meet all along your journey in that world, have you seen a lot of scientific experimentations or results that are really showing how connected this prenatal life is to the life of individuals all along their own development, and even after like 20 or 30 years, in terms of diseases or in terms of psychological behaviors?
Yes, but we have a gorgeous experiment as for humanity when this does not happen, right? So if you want to know the absence of good prenatal, you look at humanity for these last centuries and millennia. Now, when science steps into front stage, center stage, usually they start with animals. And yes, there was an experiment by Marion Diamond in the University of Berkeley. She had little lab rats and decided to give an enhanced, pretty joyful environment for pregnant ones, and relieved throughout their pregnancy, which is not a very long one, and this was done in the 60s. She offered them lots of, not just good food, but joy, play, fun time for pregnancy. It's very easy to read the brain of a rat because it's not like our brain, all folded. You read the brain of a rat like you cut a tree, and you can see exactly how the cortex is. The offspring of rats that had that kind of pregnancy was much thicker. There was much more brain matter for intelligence. We talk about rat level. We should not base the knowledge of women, rats, but this is how science proceeded at the beginning. But what was interesting, that as a true scientist, she knew how to ask real questions. So she took those babies who had then an enhanced capacity in their mind of rat, did not offer them any kind of special condition during their own pregnancy, and their offsprings went on with that enhanced brain formation. So it's there to stay. It's one generation, a huge change that is followed by the next generation. So if this happens with rats, oh my goodness, imagine with human beings. There is a lot of preoccupation, of course, in our societies with drugs and drug addiction, whatever the drug may be. It could be food, it could be a cigarette, it could be alcohol or heroin. An interesting research was, it's more like a statistic, 90% of the soldiers of Vietnam learned how to be addicted with heroin when they were in Vietnam. They came back after the war. They were especially, we're talking about American soldiers, US soldiers. Out of these 90% who had gotten hooked on heroin, only 5% remain hooked later on. Which means it's not, the addiction doesn't depend on the substance you're taking. The very addiction, which is a huge problem in our societies, depends on how our brain receptors are towards endorphins, towards joy. And when you have a very poor, a brain very poorly wired towards joy, you'll need some help from the outside. So a sturdy brain, well formed, will not need drugs. This is huge for the public authorities. And what is that brain well formed? Well, there are centers, especially a center that will allow you to have the impulse yet, but to revise that impulse towards certain behaviors with the thinking. That getting together of my impulses and my thinking gives me huge maturity. Our prisons are filled with people who were too impulsive. They thought about what they did, but after the fact, they did not stop before. And that's it. That sets them in prison for a long, long time. It's through the eyes, mother-baby bonding, just in the first hour of birth, that a lot of this download of the right hemisphere of the mother, brain hemisphere, gets downloaded, its own functioning in the brain of the baby through a reading of the retina. Now this is already perfects the work done in the formation of those specific areas. Just behind the right eye there's a big one, the fronto-occipital area. In a way, we could say that we were not able to give generations and generations of human beings a complete set of neurological functions so that at birth they could function well. They would be free from envy, they would be free from atrocious insecurities, they would be wealthy with empathy. You have Gandhis here and there, you have Martin Luther Kings, you have extraordinary people able to see the other. But that's not the majority, certainly not our politicians. And we react as fear. A cell has only two modes for growing. Either it decides to communicate with the environment, either it senses that the environment is too dangerous and they go into a mode of protection. Many months or many weeks under that protection, a lot of energy is spent to protect, and there was not a normal blossoming of the cell capacities.
Laura, you have been really devoted to that cause of prenatal education, communicating those values and sharing all the knowledge that you've been able to gather all along those years. It's a tremendous work that you've been involved in. What really inspired you in the beginning to really start, committing yourself to so much engagements?
At the time I started just loving this idea of the power nature has given to each pregnant woman. This was an idea that was from the field of esotericism, of mysticism, and it was okay with me. I did not mind dedicating my life for something like backstage, that I would be whispering to some women here and there, telling them, you know how powerful you are with this baby in your womb? And it enchanted me. Of course, I knew that all of us are experts. All of us did the voyage from cell to fetus to baby to adults. So we have it engraved in ourselves. There is a memory, there's a cell memory. But this was in the 70s, and genetic determinism kind of prevented science from looking forward into that theme. I was a privileged one when I was pregnant myself. I could taste this surrender towards life. And the conscious conception can be life-changing for the man and the woman. We are not free to determine any outcome of any pregnancy. But yes, we are free to say, life, I'd like to collaborate with you. Here is who I am, here is my companion, this is the kind of couple we are, and this is what we would be willing to share with an incoming human being for this planet. And it's simple, it's natural, but boy, it's also very, very big. It enhances our reverence for life. And then when a baby comes, it's, whoa, now we have to be of service to that human being. I took my time. I took all the time I needed to be near this child. I was not going to share this child with work, with profession. I slowed down everything, still organized some international conferences, still was learning about prenatal discoveries. But I must say that my child showed me with in the most natural way how pregnancy really had a huge impact in how we feel afterwards raising this child. I'm fully aware that we don't know what will happen once every man and every woman on earth have this knowledge, when they're in age of childbearing. This is fantastic, but I know one thing, it will be the end of everything we know. The way we are able to leave our frustrations and our foreign relations and armament industry and pharmaceutical industry and many professions, they won't exist anymore. We will be able even to close psychiatric hospitals one day, and prisons, of course. Once you have the core of a human being addressed, there is a sense of fulfillment. And the first reaction does not need to be aggression or huge levels of frustration or self-injury. I have many ideas about research. Some were even already done. What about suicidal people? How were they conceived? How were they born? How were they carried in the womb? It's interesting. I'm not talking about a determinism, because we never know who the person is. You might be pregnant with an artist. That baby will be much more sensitive than if it's another kind of person, like an administrator. Somebody who's going to administrate, and being the manager of a huge enterprise does not have the same kind of sensitivity as an artist. He won't need the applause. He'll need to be tough, and that's it. And but life doesn't tell us who we are expecting, so we have to provide the very best for everybody to begin with. And those who are more resilient than others, great. I trust science to go way beyond psychology, because already we know that there is no such a thing as matter. Everything is energy. So we are in the field of morphogenetic fields, of pure energy. And it's up to us and to our imagination to go forward towards a universe where every single child is wanted, was wanted even from prior to conception. That can happen in the next 10, 50 years. That can happen. Like we know we have to wash our hands before we eat.
Thank you, Laura, for this future perspective. Um, if you had to have a particular advice that would really be focused for maybe couples that are preparing themselves to have a baby, to start this pregnancy process, um, what would be maybe the core element that you would really put forward with all the experience that you acquired?
If you are ready as a couple to welcome a new life, I wish you well. I congratulate you for the hope it takes in humanity. And yes, do pay attention to the quality of every food you receive, from the physical food to the subtle food as art and nature surrounding you. Every investment in the joy of this pregnancy will bear extraordinary fruits later on throughout the life of this child that you're bringing to the world. Believe in your power, much more powerful than any medical system, than any system outside of you. Both of you can be the cradle of a new humanity.
Thank you, Laura, for those very supporting words. Um, I know that you've been working with adolescents in the past and even now. Could you tell us some elements of what you say to them so that they can see this reality with their own eyes in a positive and interesting way for their future?
Whenever I am in a high school, and I did that a lot in South America, a little bit around Los Angeles, but mainly in Argentina, north and south of Argentina, it strikes me that teenagers pay a huge attention to those precepts of the importance of prenatal life, but they ask questions about who they are, where they come from. It's interesting. They are curious about how they were conceived. When they feel some things, does it pertain to them or to the way they were gestated? I often tell them when we have 2 days, go back home this evening and try to ask your parents what was going on even 9 months before you were conceived. What was the atmosphere like in your family? What were the joys, the worries? And see if you can relate to some ways you are now with how your mother carried you in her womb. Was she hopeful? Was it a difficult time for her to be pregnant? Did she feel helped by that pregnancy? That is a huge and potent universe to discuss with teenagers. And yes, some of them will say, whoa, then if I have that much power, I'll pay attention about being drunk or getting the marijuana, or like I am already being the father I will one day be. So I have a responsibility myself into something that nobody can tell me anything about it. When I will be a father, I'll be a father with all my physical being and my mind. So some already think like that, but I see the teenagers more interested in how they were conceived themselves. Even when some of those teenagers already have a baby in arms, because some of the schools, the high schools I went to, there is already some teens had been pregnant already. But the importance of prenatal life, not life after the child is born, is very empowering for young men and young women, for older adults, because it's really between life and you, your inner life, and the life of every tissue of the baby in the making in you. I like to finish with a question mark. Oh, the world of possibilities. It's up to us now to start this road for humanity. So which was always taught but never applied collectively. Now we would have the means, through communication, through our understanding of biochemistry, and cell biology and neurophysiology. We could start prenatal choirs. We could start many social possibilities for women when they're pregnant. I often speak about parks. That was the dream of the spiritual teacher Omram. He taught for 50 years in the south of France, and since the 30s he said, please governments, spend money in pregnancy. You will have much less money to spend later on in social disturbances. In those parks, women could be inspired by nature, by beauty. Of course, they would have food, and there would be a synergy between these pregnant bellies, and of course, joy. That would be kind of the minimum society could do for this extraordinary power nature has bestowed pregnant women with. She cannot be pregnant all by herself. When every working law, when every situation in the family makes her want to be pregnant as if nothing was happening. This is where we should step into the picture here. Society should foster happy, healthy pregnancies. It would be a way to spend good money in order not to spend so much miserable dollars later on with autism and others.
Well, Laura, thank you very much for all those different perspectives that surrounds prenatal education and prenatal world. I would love to finish our interview by asking you maybe what you hope to do in the next few years to really continue that extraordinary work, and maybe give us some ideas to participate in our own way to nourish that.
Okay, let's instruct teenagers and children in schools about that power of prenatal life, and let's see what comes with the young ones, imagining young professionals what society could offer for enhanced pregnancies in the real sense of the word enhanced, usually by beauty, not by programs that you have to follow. I would ask governments all over the world, and this is what I've been doing for many years. Of course, you don't know of any government, do you, who has already adopted those precepts, although in some of them we got quite close. I remember Venezuela, and now I have Brazil. It's interesting, it's not preventive medicine or preventive psychology, but yes, it will make, for instance, polluters non-existent on Earth. Who pollutes? The one who couldn't care less about the environment. If I'm going to trash the environment, I don't feel great about myself. If I don't consider air and water and earth worthy of my attention, I'm a very poor human being. I might have millions in the bank, but I'm very poor inwardly. In order to have that inner wealth, I need to be well born. And then, automatically, as a natural way of being, I will have great industries, but I will mind the air and I will mind the water. I will mind life as a whole. Kinship with all life is what expects us. So I keep being a bearer of good news. We don't need to be like we have always been as throughout the world in many societies. And yes, more and more young people are interested by the wealth of possibilities that these insights can bring to us.
Thank you very much, Laura, for your time and for your dedication to this very precious subject that we care a lot ourselves. And see you soon here or wherever on the planet.
This is wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Such gorgeous British Columbia. In Brazil, we have over 95% of C-sections in some private hospitals. The universe of birth is being trashed in many places, like in Vietnam or Brazil, or even Argentina, and I think it's the very last time that our unconsciousness is reigning. Soon we'll be able to be more conscious, and what you can do here in Canada will have an impact in the whole world. Thank you.